this is a time for us to listen to you. So those who can manage to pay attention will probably get to hear you totally. So Coral, you want to go ahead?
Fair enough. I mean, should I start?
Yes, please.
So, something that I wanted to tell you, it goes back to the times when I was in college.
Mhm.
I did my college, my graduation from Shantiniketan, Vishabharati, and I was doing economics.
Wow. Okay.
And I and a couple of girls, 11 of us actually, to be precise, we were not staying in the usual university hostel. We were staying in a mess. We had hired, the entire ground floor was given out to the girls, and there was a dormitory and there were smaller rooms. And the top floor belonged to the people who owned the house. They stayed on the top floor, on the first floor, that is. So that was the year 1999, and I was doing my graduation, as I said. And that particular day, the people who owned the house, the owners of the house, they were not there. They had gone out somewhere. And before going, those days we didn't have mobiles. So we were very much dependent on one landline that happened to be there. So in the evenings, there would be calls from our houses, one by one. And because the people who were our local guardians were not there, so हम सबके tails निकले हुए थे. So there was this long corridor uh, outside our rooms, and in the evening we all knew that हमारे अपने अपने घर से calls आएंगे. So we were expecting the calls, and we all were lined up there, waiting for the phone to ring. So before going, the owners of the house, we used to call them Kakima. Kakima means chachi. So she had kept the phone out in the hall so that we can access it. So we all were lined up. None of us actually went up the stairs before the phone rang. God knows who taught us that discipline, but we followed it. But what we did was we were all lined up on the corridor and 2 steps into the stairs so that we could run. The moment the phone would ring, we would run. So eventually that happened. The phone rang and everybody ran upstairs. And whoever got to grab the phone receiver took it and took the phone. And someone obviously said that I'm the guardian of so and so, so I would like to talk to so and so. And the phone was passed on to the girl whose guardian had called. So this girl was talking. So the phone was like this, and she was talking, and we all were like looking at her like this. So everybody surrounding her were looking at her. So we made that person really uncomfortable. So she can't talk. And after 2-3 seconds of still trying or concentrating, closing eyes, doing every kind of possible stunt, she told the person that on the other end of the phone that maybe we should talk later. Right now I'll have to hang up because I have some work. So she kept the phone. And the moment the phone was kept, everybody else, the other girls, just jumped on that person and started beating her because उसके घर से पहला phone आया था, हमारे घर से नहीं आए थे. So we started slapping, beating, and screaming. And this continued till the phone rang again, and so the girl who would be nearest would again take the call, and the same process would repeat. So we were having a blast. यही चल रहा था सब में. And then eventually there was a time when the phone rang and I was the one standing closest to the phone. So I just put my hand and picked it up. It was my turn. And the voice that I heard from the other end, I completely froze. There was no introduction. There was no name. I just heard that I don't know who you are. I had just called and told the operator to put the connection to anybody in bedroom area. So I have got in touch with your number. I am calling from Kargil. I am a soldier. My father's name is so and so. He stays in so and so village. Please just tell my family that I am alive and I'll come home soon. And the phone went dead. So, this kind of a call was definitely not something that we were expecting. We were not prepared for it. And the voice was such that I was shaking, standing there and shaking. And obviously, the girls understood that something has gone terribly wrong. And I had my own cousin in Air Force. So they were scared. So they brought me some water and everything. And then slowly I told them what I heard. After that was about 8:30, and we came down, all of us, and nobody in the entire group of 11 girls, that day there was not 11, there were 9 girls. None of the 9 girls asked a question or discussed anything. We just went to our respective rooms, we changed, we picked up our bicycle keys and opened the lock and stepped out. Shantiniketan is a place which is extremely vast, well spread, and it's very difficult for anybody to do without a cycle, because if one of your classes is here, the other class will be probably 3 kilometers away. So you cannot do without a cycle. So we all had cycles and we had taken it out. We locked the main gate and we stepped out. Now the village that this guy had mentioned was was quite a distance away. It was a remote area, a Santal area, and it was already 8:30. Shantiniketan is a smaller town and it is more of a village. I mean, Birbhum itself is a much smaller area, much smaller district. There, even a town by metropolitan standards is more of a village look. So by 8:30, shops are getting closed, people are retiring. Students, of course, they loiter till as long as they can. But mostly the lifestyle comes to a close. In the morning, again, people start early. That is the culture of Shantiniketan. People retire early and people start very early. The Boitalik, which is a morning prayer that happens in the school of Vishwabharati till date, it starts at 6 in the morning and everybody is welcome. So many of us, even when we are not in the schools of Vishwabharati, we used to attend. That was something that we loved to and we did. So anyway, that's a different thing. So by 8:30, it was quite night. That's what I was trying to say, that it was quite night. And the path was very uneven and the village was quite far away. So on the way, there was another boys' mess. We just knocked them and they came out and we told them that this is what had happened and if they would like to accompany us. Obviously, all of them came out and there were, so now there were 9 girls and 6 boys. And we all were in cycles. Some of the boys actually, we didn't have it in our mind, but the boys had carried torches. So we were all riding. The number of torches, whatever was there, they were lit, and we were riding. We reached about, it took us about 45 minutes to ride and reach uh, the village that he had named. Now, the houses or the huts, they were spread apart, not in one cluster. So the first hut that we reached, one of the boys knocked and asked if there's someone inside, if they could come out. So there was this lady who was cranky and very, in a really bad mood. She came out and she basically started shouting at us that just go away. What do you think you guys are doing so late in the night? So what happened was she was thinking that probably we are some young boys and girls doing some hanky panky late in the night, and she didn't want to get involved because often what happens in these kind of places is that the place is so open that people take their liberties a little too much for granted, and the local people get entangled in their nuisance, and if there's a police case, actually the poor suffers. So she just wanted to do away with us. And so one of the boys actually stepped forward and explained to her that why we had come. We were very tired. looking for a particular gentleman. So the moment she heard the name of the gentleman, she immediately asked, "What happened? Why do you want to meet him?" So this boy said that we would like to talk to him directly. So she called out other members of her family. There were about 4 or 5 people who came out, and she said that they want to meet that person, and they all were now looking at us suspiciously. And we were after some time, she actually told us that you go from here, from here. She gave us the direction to reach that hut that we were looking for. Post that, we progressed towards the destination hut, and we realized very soon that we were being followed. So the word was spreading. The houses, the lanterns were getting lit in all the houses that we were crossing, and people were following us. So by the time we reached the hut, we were being followed by a crowd. And by the time we reached the hut, someone had traveled before us and told them that some people are approaching, and they were already out. They were already out in their courtyard, and they were waiting. So there was this father, the name of whom was shared with us. There was a mother who was crying, and there was a young woman who was standing towards the corner. And the mother was talking in her language, but given that we had been there for some time, we understood a little bit of that tribal language, and we understood that she is shouting profanities at the girl. So once again, the boy who was leading us, he spoke to the father, he sat down with him, explained whatever had happened, everything to the father, and the father quietly listened. Everybody was in pin drop silence, only the mother wailing. This boy finished, and the mother wailed even louder. And what she was screaming was that about the girl who was standing in the corner, that she has eaten my first son, and now she'll eat up my second son also. She's a witch. So we all were looking at each other, and then someone from the village, elderly person, sat down, and he tried to talk to them to remain quiet, and we got to know that there is a bigger story behind it. This lady happens to be, okay, this was a family with father, mother, and 2 boys. The elder son was met the young woman who was standing in the corner, and this elder son fled with another woman. Now, this lady, instead of sitting quiet at her home, she took up all responsibilities of taking care of the house, and at the same time, she took up on her brother-in-law. Brother-in-law was smaller, but she took him up like her own son and became very, very ambitious about him. So they had this, they would craft wooden dolls and sell it in the market. And a lot of students from Kala Bhavan would buy them and help them. So she got in touch with this entire group and got to know that there's something called NDA. So through the post office guys, she reached out to the post office guys, seeked help, and they helped her. She got the forms. She got this boy to fill them up. She got this boy to get tutored, coached by whosoever she got in touch with. She made sure that this guy, of course, it's wrong to say she made sure, but she made every kind of arrangement for this guy to crack NDA, and he did. Now, when the boy was going out, of course, the family didn't like it. But what they understood was that this is a sarkari job, government job. The boy would be posted elsewhere, and there would be good money. So they were happy. So the boy went, his training was over, he got posted. Everything was going perfectly fine, all good. And then Kargil started. Kargil started means there was war. There was war means nobody was safe in the army. And nobody was safe in the army means this guy probably was on the war foot. So obviously, everybody started blaming this girl. And she was not saying anything, at least not in front of us. She was standing on the corner listening to everything, but her eyes were on us totally. She didn't blink. I still remember that face. She didn't blink. Her eyes were on us. And eventually, she didn't utter a word. Eventually, the father asked that, who did my son talk to? And then they showed me. And then now this lady was looking at me. So the father asked me to come and sit with him. So I went and sat before him. And all that he was doing was, he was asking me all sorts of questions, which was really strange. He was asking me whether it's very cold there. He was asking me whether his son had food. He was asking me whether he said anything about when this entire war was getting over. And then he was also asking me that whether he is in the right company, whether there are people with him. I didn't have the answer for those questions. I just tried to nod, just tried to satisfy him in some way or the other. And while he was asking these questions to me, he was constantly doing this to me with his hand on my head, on my shoulders. Constantly, he was putting his hand. So it was a feeling that he was trying to touch his son through me, because I was the last interface. So this kind of a thing, you cannot continue for very long with a straight face. I was the first one to burst into tears. And in a while, everybody started, was misty-eyed, everybody had a tear in the eye. Nobody was talking about the inevitable, but obviously all of us were thinking about it. That night, none of us moved from there. All night we sat there. The father spoke about how his sons played in in their childhood, how his younger son was, how the elder son got married, how naughty the younger son was, and when he went away, how much the mother cried. All kinds of things. And we listened. So in the morning, when we were coming out, they offered something that they can cook, but we refused, and we said that we have early morning class, and we came away from there. After this incident happened, of course, months passed, Kargil got over. We often sat down all together and spoke about this incident, and we often discussed uh, what must have happened. Should we go back there and ask? Should we inquire? But himmat nahi padi kisi ko. None of us had the courage to go and ask, how is that boy? We didn't go. But this guy came. When he came back to his house during his holidays, he came looking for us. All he had with him was that, my name. Okay? He only had my name. He didn't know which department I was, what I was studying. He just knew that this is the name of the lady. She had spoken to me. So he had got something made, some mithai or something made from his home, and he had brought it in a dabba. But unfortunately, that was the time when I was in Calcutta. So I couldn't meet him, but other girls in the mess did meet. And, I feel that this is the most beautiful short story of my life. I haven't met. Now I don't even remember his name. I of course don't know how he looked, because they didn't have photographs. We didn't have mobiles. But this is one episode of my life that I'll never forget. And that is one voice that I heard on the phone that I will probably carry with me till the end of my life. But post that, of course, this is not the incident that can leave you very easily. This incident stayed with me off and on. And I think this incident is one of the biggest inspirations that I have towards starting tellmeyourstory.biz, biz. Because what I realized is that these kind of stories, a lot of us probably would have. We would sit in a drawing room, discuss, talk, and they'll disappear. They will not be documented. But these are so powerful. So my I wanted to dedicate myself towards that work, to be able to document, to be able to trap these stories which make for the communication, the stories of one particular generation. And that is the work that we are doing at tellmeyourstory.biz. If you get time, do take a look at the website to know what we are doing. But much later in life, I do believe in stories that come like that. So I had strangely got into this habit that whenever I felt really sad or upset or angry or not in the best of my moods, I would just walk up to anybody who is around, and I would say, "Ek kahani bata, tell me a story." So those days, I remember when I was teaching in Pune, there were people who, there was a lady who was the assistant of our founder director. She would tell me a lot of stories. She never said, there were of course some people who would say that, "Are, come on." They would not. But then there are also a lot of people who tell a lot of stories. And I'll tell you who are the people. Till now, I have this habit of telling people when I'm not exactly in my elements. I have this habit of telling people that ek kahani batao. And the people who never usually tell me no is either the homemakers or the citizens, the senior citizens, the students, the smaller ones. And if I'm traveling by public transport, and if there's an auto wala or some driver, whenever I tell them this, they never refuse. And what I realize is that there are people who have a lot to say, and there are people who have very few people to hear them out. And if that is the person I am sitting with at any given point of time, I know that there is a story that he would like to say and I would like to hear, that he would have suffered or cherished, and I will have learned. So that is my story that I wanted to tell you guys.
Thank you. Lovely, Coral.
Thank you.
It did send the goosebumps that you talked about. uh, Coral is awesome.
Thank you so much.
I'm actually at a loss of words right now.
Yeah, that's what happens. For some time when this kind of a story comes up, for some time it's very difficult to talk. Now, though, through Tell Me Your Story, we have covered a lot of people from armed forces, Air Force, Army, Navy, and their stories are really, there are times when I have received a story, while reading it, I have just kept my laptop shut down and I've sat down and cried for a while, thinking that what goes in life and what are we trapped with.
So true. So true. Thank you so much, Coral. I think you've done justice to your time as well. You seem to have managed your time extremely well. And and